going on, guys? Welcome to episode 9 of the Creator Series here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today's guest is Sheldon Ferguson. He hails from South Carolina. He currently lives in Atlanta. And I discovered Sheldon probably 2 years ago around the time that Travis Scott's Astro World was released. And the reason I did that is because Sheldon actually played session guitar for the song Yosemite that featured Gunna and Nav. It was one of the biggest records on the album. So that's kind of how I discovered him. He's also worked with Lil Wayne, Chris Brown, a lot of other big artists, and he also is a solo artist himself. He plays piano, guitar, I forget what else he plays. He might have mentioned it in the episode, but we kind of talked about a lot of interesting things today, a lot of new things. We talked about publishing today and kind of how publishing has been important to him and how important it is to be registered with a pro and Sound Exchange and things like that as an artist and as a producer, which is all very helpful information. He talked about kind of his favorite parts about his working with his collaborators day to day and how he's been adjusting to the quarantine and kind of the change in studio situations and whatnot. And I was just really grateful to have him on the episode today. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome, everyone, to episode 9 of the Creator Series here on the Proven Knowledge Podcast. Today's guest hails from South Carolina. I'm right about that, right? South Carolina.
That's great.
He's a guitarist, a pianist. He's a very talented composer, and his name is Sheldon Ferguson. How are you doing, man?
Doing great, man. How about yourself?
Awesome. I'm doing pretty well for as good as, this whole year's been kind of crazy and everything. So
all things considered.
Yeah, man. We kind of start every episode off with just giving kind of a little bit of background on yourself and kind of like how did you get started in music? How long have you been doing music? Just the basics.
Gotcha. Yeah, I started playing guitar when I was about 11. I went to a fairly large Baptist church growing up, and just hearing the musicians play there. One of them being my mentor, Terrence Young. That's what got me wanting to play the guitar. Actually, my dad kind of noticed that I was taking an interest in the music just from, just my sort of reactions in church and stuff. And he's bought me my first guitar, signed me up for lessons, and really that was it. After a few years, I started playing around town. Moved to Boston for college, went to Berkeley. Now I'm living in Atlanta. I've been here maybe about 5 years.
Nice. Yeah, I was gonna ask you about like if you were like went to school for it or anything like that, and you kind of just answered it. So you went to like college and everything, and I think I've heard that having a like church background as far as like being a musician has actually helped a lot of people because it helps them kind of like learn song structure at an early age and things like that. And I know like a lot of like musicians that can actually play instruments like yourself, I think I've heard that story time and time again is like it really helps them out a ton later on in life.
Definitely with a lot of skills from, like you said, learning song structure and things like that to just kind of, for me, I think most of it just learning how to be in the moment. Just like, in church, you have to respond to certain moments and maybe play something that wasn't necessarily planned. That's the same thing I'm doing, now, like in the studio. If I start playing and just nothing but me and the click, I have to just sort of just go wherever like my heart really tells me to go musically. And it's just, that's kind of what I guess I had the experience doing playing in church. So you're absolutely right.
Nice. So I mentioned earlier about kind of how crazy of a year it's been. Another question I've been starting out every episode with is, how do you think you have mentally been able to handle all of the kind of stress and just craziness that has happened in the last probably 5 or 6 months? And what do you think you've been doing every day to kind of get through it or just handle the situations?
I mean, all things considered, I really can't complain. I think if there is a time for something as awful as this whole situation is to happen, I think for me personally, it was probably the best time. I've always been like the introvert anyway. Like I like being in my own space, especially to make music. So in that sense, it was at first it was really kind of helpful because I was working on my album. I'm finishing up my album right now, and it gave me time to just kind of lock in, work on that. And before that, I'd really just gotten heavy into like just working on my time management. Something I've always tried to just get better and better and better at over the years. Um, Especially like being self-employed, being someone who works in the music industry, you really have to like have good time management skills. So when this whole quarantine started, I was really in a good place, like mentally, and just in terms of my work ethic. I kind of had not even exactly a routine, but it's like a certain focus
Mm.
um, on working on music and stuff every day, just getting up and hitting it hard. So I think in a way I was meant to prepare. Obviously, with everything going on, it definitely can be stressful. I try to stay in and out of like news and this and that, but eventually it does start to wear on you. I think in the middle of all this, like there was a point where I was just like, dang, like this is a lot. Like I had to just kind of recharge. But all things considered, I can't complain.
Mm.
I really can't.
Yeah, I know, like, I've heard so many different stories, especially from like creators and musicians, of how different people have been affected, and certain people are used to going to the studio all the time, and they kind of had to
Yeah,
learn how to do a lot of things on their own this time. They didn't have the engineers, and they didn't have any studio personnel to help them, and they've kind of had to learn like a new craft in a way, as far as like how they create every day. And honestly, I think like if you just look at the positives, or like what you can do with the free time, I think that is something you can focus on more. Like myself, I know I don't really do like a lot of studio stuff at this point. I'm still doing a lot of online like work, so it hasn't really stopped me or anything. But I've just been trying to learn like new skills through this whole thing, and really just stay focused on that, and kind of just block out a lot of the negative stuff as much as possible. Be aware what's going on, but like just continue to work, you know what I mean?
right,
Yeah.
right.
And like you said, I think like if you can just like find things that you really want to focus on, and like I don't know, be totally immersed in that, that's gonna help you get through this situation a lot quicker, because we don't really know when this thing's gonna end. So
Sure don't.
I mean, it's just important to just kind of stay focused and stay on the grind, really. um,
Right.
so I know you play guitar pretty heavy, and I know you play piano. Do you have like a preference as far as those two? Like, do you feel like you're a better guitar player or like a piano player? Or you kind of like, do you think you enjoy doing both the most, like, or one or the other?
Well, for me, it's definitely guitar is definitely first.
Mm.
I've always considered piano and even bass to be like secondary instruments.
Mm.
Like I think like for piano, it's really like it's something that I do to create. I like just the way that I'm able to make my pianos fit around my guitars or vice versa in the
Mm.
context of a record. But like on stage, like it's always like guitar. That's where I feel the
Mm.
most comfortable on. Um, like piano just kind of feels like my muse, sort of like for creating music,
Mm.
which is fun. I like being able to switch back and forth between the two. Like most of my for my production, most of my songs are like based around like one guitar riff or one piano riff, and I like being able to go back and forth. Like
Mm.
even when I'm making loops, like just make a bunch of guitar loops and then be like, all right, let's make some piano loops. But yeah, it's definitely I definitely enjoy them both. The guitar is always going to be number
Mm.
one for sure.
Yeah, I never really thought about like one being kind of more of like enjoying the live performance side, and then one kind of being like more of like how you actually craft a song. Like you kind of enjoy have like two separate preferences, but they're all really good, I think. So that's pretty dope. Um, so how important do you think live instrumentation is to, like, let's just say like modern music, like producers, like you were talking about how you make loops, like how important do you think that is now? Do you think it's getting more popular, and do you think it's gonna like keep getting more popular, or do you think like I don't know how to word it, but like how important do you think that is to have like live players mixed in with like producers, and be able to kind of combine the two together and make something really great?
I think it's extremely important, man. It's interesting. Like music is always going through phases.
Mm.
Like you go through phases where everything is programmed, and then phases where everything is live, and back over again and again and again. Yeah, I think right now it's like in the past few years, I've seen more and more live instrumentation sort of making a comeback.
Mm-hmm.
And you really said it perfectly. Like I really like the idea of being able to combine the instrumentation with like say like modern like program drums,
Mm.
trap drums, whatever. Because I think just putting those two together is it's perfect. You know, as you have the instrument just kind of gives it heart. You know, like
Yeah.
the instrument is just like it really speaks, and then the drums are just kind of like helping you. You know, like kind of just get it. You know,
Mm.
if a song's gonna be played in the club, it's like the drums have to like hit hard or
Mm.
whatever. But that instrument, you know, gives it the heart. You know, that it needs.
Mm. I know, like, for me, especially now that I've been kind of producing for like 4 or 5 years now, I'm trying to get more into working with like pianists and guitarists and things like that as far as like what I want to implement in my stuff. And because I know that they're going to bring something else to the table that I don't have. Like, sure, you could go like sample something or like deal with that whole thing. And like, there's obviously clearances with some certain things you got to deal with. But like, I think there's something special about being able to, build from the ground up and have like a clean slate and just make something cool and combine everybody's styles together. I know do you know Terrace Martin? I assume you know who that is. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
he just came out with a project with Ninth Wonder and Robert Glasper and Kamasi Washington that was called Dinner Party. And that
yeah,
just came out last week, and it's one of my favorite albums of the year. And that's a great example of like they took Ninth Wonder's beats and they did all this live instrumentation combined. It was incredible, and I was like, I want more of this because this is just great. Like,
no, I can go listen to that as soon as we as
it's
soon as
so
we
good.
finish here.
It's honestly like I was texting my friend last night. I recommended it to him because I was like, it's so good. It's only 7 songs, but I loved it. I'm a big
That's
fan
cool.
of it. So
I like short projects too.
yeah. Um. So I know you've worked with a lot of like bigger artists like Chris Brown, Travis Scott. Who do you think has been like your favorite person to work with up to this point? And it doesn't even have to be an artist. It could be like a producer, like another musician, anybody.
Oh man, that's tough. Wow, because there's been so many people, like you said.
Mm.
I mean, over the years, like I have certain people I work with that I just really connect with a lot.
Mm.
I mean, everything from musicians. Like I can always talk about my guy Mike Stone. We've been making music together since I was like what 15 or something.
Mm.
So it's like every time we get together and work, whether it's like on stage in the studio, you know, it's like effortless.
Mm.
You know what I mean? There's so many people like I've got writers I like working with. I do AJ. I've been working with a lot. Producer. We have that same sort of connection where we just kind of get each other. Um, Golly, it's like almost hesitate to even start naming because there's just so
Mm.
many.
Mm.
Um, but like I'd say, dang man, that's tough. That's really tough.
Just a lot of people. I mean, I assume you
Yeah,
work with like even more people like that kind of want your skill set like in the room of just being like you can add so much to someone's song or like someone's album or something. So I think with you
yeah,
like you probably have even more of like a wide range of people you could work with because you could tap into so many different genres too. It's not just like one or the other.
right.
So,
I'll say this too. I think low key more than anything now. My friend Anthony, you know, he's like my go-to engineer.
mm,
Um, I think he is easily like, even though it's a different type of thing with him being on the engineering side rather than like production side. Us working together, he's kind of just like on top of pretty much every project I'm working on
mm,
right now. To the point where I can even just like send him an idea or something, just even for opinions and stuff like that. And I think his input, I say more than anything right now, is probably the most valued,
mm,
you know, I have right now.
mm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you guys are kind of building like a chemistry almost. Like
Yeah,
you be able to,
chemistry everything for me.
yeah. So he's kind of gonna be able to learn your preferences, and like you can kind of learn what he does, and just kind of
Yeah,
do that. So
yeah.
that's something that I think is very helpful though for you. Um, so you talked about people you've already worked with. Who do you think you want to work with that you haven't had the opportunity to work with yet, or you'd like to down the line? You think?
Hmm. That's a good one too. I feel like I mean there's always like artists and stuff. Like for me, I think we're talking about just like, you know, bucket list stuff. I still really want to have a chance to sit down with like all of my big heroes, like the Stevie Wonders
Mm.
and the um I want to meet Nile Rodgers. I want to work with him.
He's
People
great.
that I grew up listening to and stuff.
Mm.
Like I still have that desire to like get in with them in some way. Or even just have a conversation.
Mm.
Really.
Yeah, I know. Nile Rodgers. I discovered him through like when he was working with Daft Punk, like in 2013, and then I started checking out like some of his stuff, and I was like, this dude's like insanely talented. Like he's just a great musician all the way around. So he would definitely be dope to like chop it up with, I think. Um, so I know you put out your own content, like your own out. You talked about you were working on an album and everything. How do you think that has kind of benefited your overall career as far as like how helpful has that been being able to put out your own content as well as work with other people?
Yeah, that's helped tremendously. I think
Mm.
like more than anything else, I think it's just helped sort of like spiritually, I guess. I think there's just something different to working on your own music
Mm.
and getting those ideas out and creating your sort of world as an artist that really just, I guess, is healthy, um, regardless of like how far you really want to go with it. Like, because some people, they don't really want to be artists, but I still like try to encourage them to, just like put something out just for you,
Mm.
because it's just something about releasing that makes all your other work that much more genuine.
Mm.
Because you really get kind of caught up in the hustle of like chasing after like placements or whatever big opportunity and trying to write whatever song you think someone's gonna like
Mm.
or whatever. You need that time to like work on your stuff and like get your story out there. And even just like when it comes to planting seeds and just I don't know, just seeing stuff kind of come to fruition. I feel like the timing with everything that's happened with me, it was like all the production stuff started taking off went right after I had put out my album. Yeah, I think it was just something about investing my time and my money and everything in my project that just like whether it's for me it's God or universe whatever you want to call it. Like I feel like everything that happened after that was a direct result of me just buckling down and working on my stuff.
Mm.
If that makes sense,
Mm.
you know, it's just one of those things.
I know, like myself, for example, like I know when I first started producing, I was kind of just focused on like I only saw it from like you could just get placements, and I didn't really think about like putting out my own stuff or anything like that, or that was even like an option. And then the last couple years, I've just tried to start pushing my own music because I'm like, I'm kind of leaving myself an opportunity on the table that would just be wasted if I didn't. You know what I mean? Like the
Exactly.
placement thing is great, and that's always going to be like important, and you should do that, I think. But like you're still playing like a guessing game at the end of the day, especially when you're just sending stuff and you're not in the studio. You're kind of just playing a guessing game to see if like they're gonna use this, or maybe they might use it, or it might never come out, and like things like that. Like I feel like when you put your own content out, you get to choose like what you want the people to hear. You get to choose how it's arranged and everything. You can make it what you want to make it, and it helps. Like I think it helps everything else just being able to do that and being able to put out your own stuff, and it just helps like creatively and just overall. And I think it also gives you more of an identity and like a brand too, and
Yes.
people can see that and actually relate to you and know who you are and things like that, and be more inclined to be like, well, they did this, so let me check out the stuff they worked on for this person, and then they kind of just keep checking out your whole catalog. So that's kind of how I've always viewed that as far as
Yeah.
working on your own stuff.
And
Um,
even piggyback off what you were saying
yeah.
earlier about the whole guessing game thing. That I was just talking to someone about that too. It was interesting because I've experienced the same thing with like trying to guess what people like
Mm.
when you're sending stuff. But on the flip side, it's like almost all the placements that I have, especially the bigger ones,
Mm-hmm.
it was always like that. Just sending stuff.
Mm.
Like ironically, it's weird, because we didn't know, for instance, like with Yosemite, like we didn't know like what Travis was like looking for. I mean,
Mm.
we were in the studio with Rich Homie Quan that night. Like it wasn't even supposed to be for him originally. Or same thing with the Chris Brown record, Don't Check on Me. Like it was just another song like in the catalog, but but they're good. They were good
Mm.
songs. I definitely feel like if your stuff stands out and it's good, like people can't help but people are gonna bite eventually.
Mm.
Now at the same time, like sometimes there's a situation where like, um, you might have an artist that's known for making pop music, but they're working on a country project, and you wouldn't know that unless you're plugged in
Mm.
with them. So you definitely got to play both sides. But I always had to say like sending stuff is
Yeah.
still a good thing to do. You're making good music, someone's
Hmm.
gonna like it. Eventually.
Yeah, I think you should never like stop one or the other. I think it's just good to do it all if you can. Like just
Definitely.
do everything you
Definitely.
can. Give yourself every opportunity you can at all
Yeah.
times. In all honesty. Um, so I know you were talking about like working in the studio, and I assume you work from home as well every once in a while. So do you have a preference as far as like, would you rather be in sessions with artists, or would you rather just work from home, or can you work great from both places?
I definitely like both because it's a different energy
Hmm.
with each one. Like for me, I feel like I come up with things at home that I wouldn't come up with in the studio, but then I come up with things in the studio that I wouldn't come up with at home. Quarantine has made that really interesting
Hmm.
because I've obviously been at home more than ever, but the workflow has actually been really nice. I've been coming up with good ideas and stuff, and sending ideas to writers and having them write on the tracks or whatever and
Hmm.
send them back. That's actually been working out really well. I've actually been able to bring some writers that are here in Atlanta. I've had them just come by, and we have like our studio session here at the house, and it's actually been working out really well.
Hmm.
It's been productive. So
Nice. Yeah, I know like just being in kind of the internet age we're in, and like you can just send things and kind of just someone could record a part, send it to like the producer, and they can kind of put it together and then send it to the engineer for mixing, and it's a
exactly.
whole lot easier for like something like this to happen in today's age, I think, than it would have been like 20 years ago. It would have been probably way more difficult to tell everybody, you can't go to a
Uh,
studio and like record. You got to like figure it out from there. Like I feel like we have so much more like freedom as far as what we can do just because of the internet and
right.
all that. So, um, speaking of the internet, this is kind of like a piggyback question. Do you utilize social media a lot as far as like, I know you're on Instagram and Twitter and stuff. Do you feel like you're able to kind of push yourself a lot better using social media? Or do you have kind of other methods to kind of brand yourself?
Social media stuff has been cool. I feel like when it comes to like say record production, it's cool because you can kind of put the word out that you worked on whatever you worked on and
Mm.
kind of build up your name, and then more people start recognizing you, and some of that just promoting myself like as a producer has definitely led to certain people going actually like DMing me or like emailing me or whatever
Mm.
about working on some serious stuff. So that's definitely been helpful. I feel like on the artist side, it's a little different though. Like I use Instagram a lot as an artist too, but from what I found most recently, especially since I started working with my manager, um, I feel like when you're trying to promote your own music, Instagram is just kind of the beginning. Like it's
Mm.
okay because, but the thing is, people aren't really going to Instagram to discover new music.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I go to Instagram and look at memes and whatever pointless stuff. But that's why it's so important to tackle like those blogs and getting those
Mm.
playlists and all that kind of stuff. But it's helpful.
Mm.
It's definitely helpful.
Yeah, I know. Like I've said this on a few other episodes too. It's like Instagram has changed so much compared to what it was like 10 years ago. Like I remember when I got an Instagram, it was like 2011, and it used to just be like you just post a photo of like your dog with a filter on it. That was like what Instagram was, and now Instagram is like multimedia. Like we got video clips, you got full size like interviews you could put up, you got photos and all everything. It's like a totally different game, and like you got to do pay to play type deal. Like you got to promote yourself and put in a certain amount of money and have target audiences and all kinds of different stuff. So it's kind of just interesting to see like how it's changed, and I think it's definitely going to keep changing, and not just Instagram, like every social media platform. There's always going to be like new things popping up. So I think it's kind of important too to like just kind of see what people are kind of gravitating towards, and see if you can bring your brand and your like music to that platform and just be able to promote yourself as good as possible, I think.
Yeah.
And kind of just
I
staying it's really like staying up to date. Like I feel like the people that refuse to like adapt are going to get left behind. Like me personally, I don't really like social media, but I have like become much more active just because I'm trying to promote like what I'm doing with my music and
Yeah.
everything. So it's like it's kind of like a necessary evil to me, but I
Hmm.
know it has to be done, so I just do it. You know, it's one of those things you kind of have to do it at least to a certain extent just to be able to continue to push your brand and whatnot. So
That's good. I'm
yeah,
right there with you, man.
yeah,
I hate social media, but
yeah.
I'm on it because I have to be. And I've definitely just talking to Anthony about this too. I've definitely made a habit out of just staying logged out for most of the day,
Mm.
and then like so I can get work done, and then try to like wait to the end of the day to check it. Like obviously I'll slip up a few times and like log back in and look at whatever. But for the most part, yeah, I'm right there with you,
Mm.
man. Like I'm not crazy about social media, but it's one of those tools that we have to use to
Mm.
our advantage. So it's all about balance.
And it sucks to like start scrolling and then you get sidetracked and you're just like, why am I looking at this, this, and this? So sometimes I feel like I just gotta like put the phone down and just take a break from it for a while too.
Yeah,
So
gotcha.
um, I know you were talking about your manager, and I've been in contact with your manager the last couple of weeks. Can you talk about like how important your manager has been to your career and kind of what they've been able to do for you, and kind of just give me kind of the specifics of what their day to day like relationship is with you.
Well, Asia, she's been extremely important. We started working together. Well, she became my manager at the top of the year. Before that, she was my creative director. So she's been really heavy on developing my overall brand, the aesthetic, everything.
Mm.
And it's really just like been like a whole 180. Just saying, just like the increase in just like the overall quality of how everything is presented, and just from seeing that, between her working on the aesthetic of my brand to her actually being the point person to reach out to whoever is contacting me about working on some records or whatever it is, or booking me as an artist.
Mm.
um, it's just really helps a whole lot in terms of just like the way I'm presented.
Mm.
um, when it comes to the releases, she does everything from designing like the rollouts and everything, the visuals, to hitting up the blogs, and you know really doing the groundwork to push the music to make sure it actually gets heard.
Mm.
Um, and then on top of that, it's like she's just kind of like my second brain. She's helping me think through all this stuff so that I have more just free thought to like focus on making better music. Ever since we really started this whole thing, like I've just felt more free, just like mentally, to do
Mm.
what I want to do with my music, and it's been extremely, extremely helpful.
Yeah, I know. Like, I've kind of interviewed a lot of like independent artists and people that don't have as much like following and whatnot. And I know like your following, I assume, has been like increasing steadily, especially over the past like 3 or 4 years. So I can imagine there's
Definitely.
like a lot more work now than there was like 5 years ago. So it's probably nice to have somebody that can kind of like assist you in like the areas that you need like help in and like certain things like that. So that's definitely
Definitely.
helpful to have though. Are you signed to like a label or anything at the moment? Or are you like, do you have your own thing
Uh,
going on or no label?
no label.
No label? Do you think, let's say, maybe not a major label, but like a smaller label, do you think like if a situation looked good enough for you, do you think you would ever kind of join a label or be on a label for at least a little bit? Or do you like the independent thing?
Well, to be specific, do you mean more so like as a producer signing a pub deal, or like as an artist like on a label, or?
This would be more toward the artist side, I believe, with
Okay.
this one. Yeah.
Um, I feel like that's a little bit tougher because as an artist, like they definitely being on a label definitely has its pros and cons.
Hmm.
Uh, Labels have budgets, and stuff can be helpful, um, especially if you're trying to tour and just like you need that sort of boost. Um, you're trying to get your music like really like on all the major radio stations and all that. So I would definitely consider it as an artist, but I do really enjoy being independent, and I think for anybody, I think everybody should be trying to get as far as they possibly can before involving a label, because you're going to be able to negotiate for a better deal anyhow.
Mm.
But it's just, yeah, like stuff like that. I feel like if you can do it without a label, you should. But if it makes sense, why not? It's all about what the paperwork says, really, more than anything else.
Yeah, because it's kind of interesting that everyone has kind of told me the same thing when I asked the question. It's just like they enjoy independence and they understand as well. Like label isn't always a bad thing. It's just you have to make sure the situation is right for what you're trying to do. It's about like preference and all that. It's not just like signed just to be like I'm signed to a label. Like, well, that situation could be that situation could be totally wrong for what you're trying to do. So like that's not the reason to sign to a label. It would be more like they can offer you something and vice versa and like have a good like partnership with them and not just like just be I'm signed to a label. That's kind of not really smart thinking in my opinion. I don't think.
That's the last thing you want, man.
Yeah.
They'll know that you're excited too, like, and they will take advantage of that. So.
You brought up publishing. That was kind of my next question. I was gonna ask, kind of have you explain like I don't know if you're on like if you have like a publishing deal or a publishing situation, or if you're just with a pro or something. But can you kind of explain like how important publishing is to, especially like someone like yourself who's like an instrumentalist and a producer? Kind of just give me a little bit of info on how that has benefited you.
Man, I see where should I even begin with this? I feel like it's definitely important for everybody to not only understand how publishing stuff works, but just to know, like, to ask for it. Like me as an instrumentalist, it's like we're kind of in this weird category where it's like certain people understand. It's like, well, if you make a guitar loop and then someone puts drums on it, you and the guy who did the drums are both producers.
Mm.
But you also have other people who are like, well, you just play guitar, and those are the situations where it helps to have representation, so that you can get what's yours. Um, and that's just, between knowing the game, knowing how to read people, and having some people behind you, because people are definitely going to try you, with that kind of stuff, as an instrumentalist. But main thing is obviously, number one is to have like, to be with the PRO, you got to have BMI or ASCAP or whatever, obviously. And then it just that conversation needs to be started early too, with whoever you're working with. Like they have to understand, it's like, oh, I'm not just working for, I'm not doing a work for hire thing. Like, I'm doing this for points and doing this for publishing. Like I want my sound exchange stuff. Like you have to know to ask for those things, really like in the beginning, and just not be afraid to speak up. That's the main thing.
I know you brought up sound exchange. I've actually just now been recently learning about like what that is and how that's kind of separate from the pro and everything. And like I didn't even know anything about it until like a few months ago. So I'm just trying to learn more and more every day about like the whole publishing thing, because it is like a lot of ins and outs and very specific like details based on every single song and every single person that worked on the song. And it's just kind of a crazy thing, but I definitely think it's something that people need to be aware of. And I knew that you would probably have some good insight on it because you've worked with so many people now and you probably have a lot of experience with it. So I appreciate you kind of giving that insight. Have you had the opportunity to do any like sync licensing as far as like having your music in like a movie or a TV show or anything like that yet? Or do you think that's something you want to get into soon? Or
Yeah, I actually would like to get deeper into that, like with like my own music. I like the idea of doing some sync stuff with my songs, but I have, with the songs that I have out, Yosemite, for instance, was on like some BT Awards. I think was first, because Gunna and Lil Baby performed it live, so that was like a little sync opportunity for us. Obviously, they used it in the documentary, the Netflix. So,
the Astro World movie. It was like an Astro World like documentary, right?
Yeah,
I think I saw it.
Yeah. Yep. So that was kind of like a little taste of just like how that stuff just kind of works. I think there's a couple other songs that I placements I have with people that ended up on like TV or whatever. But yeah, it's something I want to get into a whole lot more. Actually, like I haven't done a whole lot of work in film, but that's something I want to dig a lot deeper into.
Mm. Yeah, so far for me, like I've it's another thing I've kind of just been recently like researching and getting into, and it seems like so far it's kind of been a little harder to get in contact with the right people because I'm still not sure like who to look for. Like I'm trying to look for like the people at TV shows that run like the music department and like people that compose certain episodes, music and things like that. I feel like so far it's been like you kind of got to dive a lot deeper for this type of thing because I'm not really aware of it yet, but I definitely think that it's important to have, and I've been told that like it can help you out a lot and actually help with your discovery as well as like people hearing it and being like, oh, what is that? And like they Shazam like an episode of
Exactly.
whatever show, and then they'll figure out it's you. So that's definitely something I think that is important. And I know like I've seen people that they only make music for like video games and things like that, and like they tailor their music very specifically for like episodes of shows. Like the creator of the show will send them a clip of whatever scene and they compose around the scene. Like very
Yeah.
talented people that get to do it too. So shout out to all those people because I can't even picture myself doing that because that would take so much like time and effort. I feel like, but it's definitely
Yeah.
something I think that if you can do it, you should probably do it. So,
Definitely,
um,
you're doing the right thing too, man. It's just like any other industry, like
mm,
or any other side of the industry. Like you got to know the music supervisors and everybody involved, and it just goes back to networking and just like everything else, really.
mm,
No different from than regular like mainstream record production stuff. So
mm. So we're down to the last couple questions here. I'm not going to keep you too much longer. If you could go back 10 years to the past to talk to yourself and kind of like give yourself some advice, what do you think you would tell yourself about anything you'd like to change or anything that you kind of wanted to warn yourself about?
I would say just I would tell myself to just believe in myself a little bit more. Not be afraid to take chances, things of that
Mm,
nature. I think I learned how to do that when I came to Atlanta. I think me in Boston and maybe even me in Columbia, my hometown. I think even though I was doing a lot of stuff, I still feel like I was doing a lot of stuff in my lane and in my comfort zone. But looking back on just like everything, I feel like I received the most growth in myself and in my career when I took chances.
mm,
I remember the first time I even did the session, like just working on like some trap stuff or whatever. I remember thinking like, damn, I really don't know what I'm gonna play. Like just I remember being apprehensive about it,
mm,
but it just like I went, and it went well, and just that led to something else, something else, something else. And really just with everything, like I think just being willing to take a chance, not being afraid to start over. A lot of people, it's like you build up your name in one particular area and you just kind of like stop there. But, if you look at people like the Jay-Z's and like Kanye's, all of them, it's like went from like one thing to something else, to something
mm,
else, and something else, just kept evolving, kept growing, kept starting over. And like that's the kind of stuff that keeps me like motivated
mm,
and inspired. So to answer your question, I would definitely tell like my former self to like just do that like
mm.
even more.
I think it's important to like get out of your comfort zone and not stay in like one rut or like I feel like if it gets too comfortable then you should probably change what you're doing even if it's good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like so if you could flip it then let's say let's go 10 years in the future. What do you think you want to be doing and where do you think you want to be in your career?
I'd say for me, it's really just expanding. I think like I put myself like in the lane that I want to be in, but now it's like just doing that on a much larger and larger level. If I have a few big records out right now, I want to have a whole lot of big records out later.
Mm,
I want to even see my artist stuff continue to build and get bigger and bigger. So, when the world opens back up, I'd be able to like really tour like on a larger scale.
mm,
As an artist, even past all that, I want to get to a point where I don't necessarily have to make music anymore if I don't want to.
mm,
I want to have a career that sustains itself. Whether that means like starting some sort of other business that can kind of sustain itself, and I can kind of just go over here and do like the family thing or whatever. because I have those type of goals too. Like it's not all just music and career. I want to be able to slow down one day and just like do the normal life thing. So
I think it's good though to have that kind of like a broader view of everything too, and not just like kind of trapped in like what you're doing in the now as well. Like you're very like, I feel like you have like that vision in your mind, so I think you could definitely make that happen for yourself. So
definitely.
Do you have any final words of wisdom for the listeners today?
I'd say I was saying before, man, just believe in yourself, work hard, take chances, don't worry about what anybody else thinks. If you're thinking about starting something that's new, especially since we're in this whole season of like quarantine and everything with the coronavirus, we're seeing a lot of shifts in people's lives and doing different things, and everybody's kind of in their own zone and thinking about that one thing that they've been thinking about doing forever but haven't executed. I say like now is the time to just try, plant some seeds somewhere else, do some different things, and just don't worry about like whatever's holding you back.
Yeah, it's definitely good to stay focused on, like I said, the positive and just kind of push through it, I think is what we can do at the end of the day. So, well, Sheldon, that's all I have for you today. I appreciate you getting back with me about being on the episode today, and I'm looking forward to hearing your album and really everything you got going. I assume you probably got a ton of music coming out soon, so I'm looking forward to hearing it, man. And hopefully we could do this again sometime.
Anytime, man. Just let me know.
Nice, bro. Thank you guys for listening today. We will be back same time next week. Not sure quite who the guest is yet, but stay tuned. Thanks.